When you look at the United States map in 1965, it's just a series of explosions of bands. And the Nightcrawlers, of course, were one of the best of the Florida bands. The Nightcrawlers were an extremely unique example of the DIY, do-it-yourself garage band ethos that was incredibly successful on their own terms and made some really extraordinary music.
Often a lot of bands at that time, they were essentially playing other people's music, the hits of the day, and they may have done it very well, but because the Nightcrawlers wrote original material, that really did set them apart. It's something that solidified their spot in rock's rich tapestry.
These are damn good songs, and they do hold up because they're not gimmicky, they've got some attitude to them. The Nightcrawlers had some swagger.
Something infected popular culture I'd say in the 50s. And it's been going on ever since. And the Nightcrawlers, I think we're right at the crest of the wave.
Little Black Eggs were one of the most memorable 45s that come out of that time and was subsequently a hit, not a huge national hit, but it was obviously a big hit in certain parts of the country and to this day is remembered. It definitely fits in there with the cult classics.
It's a very minor key, folky sound. Quirky, unpredictable, playful, and super catchy. They had the songwriting, they had the playing ability, they were good-looking boys. I think they could have been a big band.
My little black egg, my little black egg, my little black egg.
I got the idea we should start a band because it would sure be a lot easier than working at the local grocery store to make money. Pete Thomason moved to Florida when we were juniors in high school. I got Pete to teach me to play guitar.
Soloing was difficult. He didn't have much timing, didn't have any abilities really. He had to be all of it was taught. But he learned it. He learned it quite well.
Originally, Rob was going to be the sax player because he played sax in the school band, and there was never any question that he was going to be in the rock and roll band with us.
I was a terrible sax player. It was either sing or get out of the band because I couldn't play anything. So, and I mean, there wasn't a big demand for tambourine players.
I was playing in a folk group called the Craftsmen on the boardwalk in Daytona Beach. And Sylvan and Sally were dating that far back.
Sally and I were walking on the boardwalk and saw him singing in a folk band. Charlie told me this story at our reunion because I didn't remember it. He said, "You and Sally stood and watched us for an hour. And when we took a break, you walked over and said, 'You want to play in a real band?' He said, I was so taken aback, I said, 'Yes.' And your next question was, 'Do you know any drummers?'
They all went to Seabreeze and I went to Father Lopez. And I had to go to summer school because I flunked biology. I did terribly in high school. And I met Tommy Ruger.
He said he knew a drummer who went to Mainland High School, Tommy Ruger, and I said, 'Fine, ask him if he wants to be in the band. We have a job this weekend.' That's how the original 5 guys became the Nightcrawlers.
We just, started doing stuff for Seabreeze High School and Mainland High School and, just staying busy on weekends, playing Friday nights or Saturday nights. When you're young, nothing hurts. Your hands would be all chewed up, your feet would be chewed up, but the next day you're doing it again. If I did that now, it'd be 911 and an oxygen tank.
Tommy Ruger is a phenomenal drummer from his steadiness and his rock-solid beats. He wasn't a show drummer, but the guy would just play. It was a human metronome thing. And I don't consider any of us phenomenal players, but the rhythm or the beat that the group established when it played is what attracted people to like it. And Tommy Ruger was the heart of that.
None of us were great musicians in the purely musical talent, but we had a knack on stage, especially Rob, of being able to put forth the personalities that people liked and enjoyed, and we had a good time. And we always felt like our job was to entertain people, not just to play music. And it was really to make people dance. So one of the fundamental rules in the band was, I don't care how good the song is, if it's not danceable, we don't play it. So we wanted to rock the house, and that's what we learned how to do at the Seabreeze Rec Center, which was supposed to hold about 200 people. They were packing in 1,000 people every Saturday night. They were dancing on the street on Atlantic Avenue. Couldn't get them in the place.
So glad to be at the Magnique, the best, the swinging, the most rockin' out club in the whole state of Florida.
I remember seeing them at the Seabreeze Rec, and it was just always this frantic adoration by the crowd. Well, by me for one of them in particular. They had lots and lots of groupies. Pete had his own little following always.
I don't know about that. I remember having my share, but I don't think I was anything, it wasn't any great shakes or anything. I don't think it was anything different than anybody else. I would say it was Robbie, really. I think we had Robbie's change most of the time.
We got a good thing going. One more time, let's go now.
We started off doing very simple rhythm and blues songs that Rob knew because he had a very extensive collection of blues and R&B music from the late 50s, mid 50s. And he could sing it really well.
Never break, never break, never break this heart of stone.
4-hour sets weren't uncommon, and occasionally a 5-hour set. And I'd take some honey to try to soothe my throat, but it didn't seem to work that well. So when I really got to where it looked like my voice was going to give out, I'd spray chloroseptic in my throat. And somehow that worked to where I could keep singing.
I just can't make her cry.
Sylvan and I were kind of both self-proclaimed leaders of the band, and we fought like cats and dogs all the time. And Rob was always the voice of reason that would go, wait a minute, you guys. If you do this and everything else like that, then it'll all work out. And we go, oh yeah, you're right. And so it's kind of ironic that he turned out to be a judge because he was like the judge in the band.
Sometime during that period, Charlie Conlon started writing songs. And about the same time, Lee Hazen, who wanted to be a recording engineer, had an apartment in Ormond Beach that he had set up the kitchen as a recording studio. So he invited us to rehearse up there, and he could practice recording us. So we recorded some stuff that Charlie had written, and we didn't think anything about it. And then one night, there was a drive-in called the Plaza Drive-In on the north end of Bel Air Plaza. That's where all the kids used to hang out from Seabreeze. And one night at 2 in the morning, Rob and I were in my car or his car, hanging out there, listening to radio, and all of a sudden we hear on the radio the song Cry. And we said, wait, that's us. We didn't have a clue. We didn't tell anybody to take it to the radio station. It was a total, complete surprise.
You're sitting like at a drive-in with your girlfriend or a bunch of people, and all of a sudden on the radio comes a song that you played on. Everybody's poking at you and laughing and teeing, but it was very, very very heady.
Now, as it turns out, Lee Hazen had taken it down there and said, we think you guys would be interested in playing this. This is a local band, and we think this is a good song. And so they agreed to start playing it late at night. Well, within a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, they were playing it in the afternoon, and the next thing we know, it's #1 in Daytona.
Lee Hazen calls me one day at home, and he said, these guys want to have a record made. And he said, they don't know how to deal with it or what to do with it. And he said, and they need somebody to follow this thing up and try to get it manufactured for them. And he said, would you want to do it? And I said, well, I don't know anything about getting records manufactured. I said, but I'll sure find out. And I went and bought a book called This Business of Music. And I said, well, hell, I can do this.
Mike really was tremendously instrumental in the success of the Nightcrawlers. And nobody ever worked harder and was more loyal and trustworthy and dedicated. And he took us a long way.
If I were you, I wouldn't stay.
It's kind of strange the way it worked in the studio versus the stage. Charlie sang the records and Rob did the show. They cut a ballad called If I Were You, and they said, you know, that's the hit record. So Chet Smith, who was the program director and music director at WROD, we said he was so nice to us to play Cry. We're going to take this to him first. So we put If I Were You on the tape first, and then the Egg second. No records manufactured yet. We just, you know, just said, let's let Chet see if he would play it. Took it down, and he listened to If I Were You, and he said, well, that's really good. You know, he said, yeah, we'll play that. You know, he said, but not until you get some records. And then he said, well, what's next? I said, well, that's just a little thing they you know, played, and I said, it's a little novel song, and it wasn't 30 seconds into the song, and he looked at us and said, that's a hit record. And he said, the guitar part is amazing. He said, because it's so melodic, da-da-da-da-da-da, and he called it right, and he said, also, this is the dumbest song I've ever heard. He said, because it's about an egg, and you found it in a tree, and a guy named is Lee, and the reason it was called Tree and Lee and whatever, it's because Lee was the engineer. And because originally I think Charlie said, here comes Mary, here comes Joe, and we said, then we changed it, here comes Mary, here comes Lee, I'll bet what they want to see. That works. They put it on the air, and it was #1 for 22 weeks. And it wasn't because they kept pushing it. It's just because the phone didn't stop ringing.
We were going to Orlando to play a job. We were in a rent-a-car, and I remember Pete Thomason punching the radio button, the old AM radio button, and every station he punched, the Egg was being played at the same time.
So we got asked, along with the Almonds, who were called the Almond Joys, to open the Beach Boys concert.
We were doing What I Say, and Greg Allman singing, you know, and then I would sing a verse, and then he would sing a verse, and we'd go back and forth.
Dwayne and Greg Allman were much better musicians than we ever dreamed of being. These guys were the accomplished musicians in Daytona. You know, they had the band, and they couldn't get work because of this upstart kids from Seabreeze High School and who hadn't even been playing very long suddenly come along and take over the town.
That was a pretty scary concert because it was a big deal for us. And I remember the concert like it was yesterday. Glenn Campbell played bass. Brian Wilson could not travel with him. Never heard of Glenn Campbell at the time. He was a studio musician and, of course, phenomenal.
We got the biggest applause, better than the Beach Boys. We couldn't believe it. It was one of the greatest times of my life.
A distributor in Miami called me on the phone, you know, hey, how you doing? Says, you know, we own labels and we're the largest independent distributor in the South, which they were. And they'd like to manufacture the record for us, leave it on our label, which was called Lee Records, which was just for Lee Hazen. We met with Henry, the record company guy, and for everybody to sign contracts, which are totally illegal because nobody was 21 except me. And he made the big joking thing about, you know, you guys are going to make a lot of money, or you know, and you're going to be a hit band or whatever. He said, but you know, I may never pay you. And I must say, Henry, you're a man of your word. You never paid us. Now the record is now being released nationally on Cap Records. And wherever it got played, which was not a phenomenal amount of places because of lack of promotion, it was #1.
What makes that song popular? Does it stand the test of time? Yeah. People still talk about it. You'll hear it on the oldie goldie radio. You hear it on XM. I have XM in the car, and it's really funny to be flipping around the knob. You hear ding, ding, you know, so, oh man, here it is again. It's like, you know, it's back.
88.9 FM, KXLU, Los Angeles, KXLU.com. The Nightcrawlers and Little Black Egg. I'm Stella. I've been a DJ here at KXLU. I've done a show called Stray Pop for 26 years, usually for Easter. You know, I play a whole theme set, but I also do throw in Little Black Egg. It's a darn pretty song. The reason why you're here tonight is your favorite garage punk song. Is it your favorite pop song? How would you classify it of all time?
The reason I love this record so much is that It's got the folk rock angle going on. It's got nice jangly guitars, and, you know, of course there's the tambourine and everything. And then the lyrics come in. And the lyrics, although I've listened to it hundreds of times, still don't really make any sense to me. And I think that's part of the charm.
I don't care what they say. I'm gonna keep it anyway. I won't let them stretch their neck to see my little black hair with the little white specks.
As far as the lyrical content, I've yet to discern the exact meaning. I don't know if it was just sort of one of those off the top of their heads sort of stream of consciousness style of writing, but it's pretty cool. It almost sounds like the type of lyrics that the, like, you know, the weird kid that was never picked for kickball would write. I think they definitely deserve a bin card.
Every year, I've been so fortunate, I play on the Leonard Skinner Ronnie Van Zant Memorial Concert. I got to meet Ronnie Van Zant just 2 days before the plane crash. And I told Ronnie that my favorite song was The Little Black Egg, and I asked him, did he know The Little Black Egg? And he told me it was his favorite song, and that he started out singing The Little Black Egg. It was one of his first songs.
When he first heard The Little Black Egg, Ronnie Van Zant played that song all the way up until they did their big tours with their original music. 1,000,000 times I heard them sing and play The Little Black Egg. He loved it.
When I first heard The Little Black Egg, I thought, what is this little black egg? And I'd been reading about this weird stuff called star jelly that shows up on lawns, mostly in Texas, it seems like. And it's this strange purple, sort of semi-luminescent slime. But, you know, people are pretty panicky down there about UFOs in general, and so people were talking about star jelly, this stuff that comes from outer space and you don't want to touch it. So then I thought maybe the little black egg is some sort of manifestation of this outer space substance. And then one of my writers, Chaz, I told him my theory, and he said, no, the little black egg is when you're cooking a cake and you've got all the good stuff in there and the good chocolate, and, you know, you actually bought cake flour, and then you crack a spoiled egg in and everything's ruined. I'm pretty sure I don't want to eat a little black egg.
The song had some controversial element, you know, with the line, you know, the little black egg with the little white specks, that they would have, you know, it would be a comment on interracial marriage or relationships or miscegenation. And that's why it was a big deal, you know, in the South or whatever. The lyrics were like a secret code. It's like if, you know, it's like you'd recite them with a sort of a knowing, yeah, I know what this is about. I'm sure they never ever thought that strange little song is going to have a life outside of Daytona Beach.
I have no idea what that song was about to this day. It just didn't mean anything to me. It was, you know, the words. It was the guitar that I really thought was incredible. Just a real cute, catchy, well done guitar riff.
It's an extremely easy riff to play, and it's one of those riffs, you know, if you're just learning how to play guitar, it's one of the first things you can play that, hey, I'm playing something recognizable, and, you know, that maybe as much as anything else has helped it stay in the sort of public consciousness.
I don't care what they say. I'm gonna keep it anyway.
When I was a kid, everybody always wanted to play Little Black Egg for you. I can play guitar. Watch this, and they'd play.
To see my little black egg with a little white specks. What does that mean anyway?
I think the true meaning has yet to be revealed, and one of these days, I hope I'm the first journalist that they actually tell me the true meaning. But from what they told me, the official PR Safe for the World line is, we just wrote it for Easter. And it was a throwaway, and it became their hit. It became their signature song.
I get people emailing me saying, I want to record The Little Black Egg. Do I have your permission to do it? Da, 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 da. We're going to do it, and it's going to go out on this label, that, and the other thing. And I'm thinking, good Lord, it's been 30-something years and everything in this song is still, I don't get it. I still don't get it. No wonder I can't write another hit. I'm not writing stupid enough songs.
I'm not really sure when or why we decided to play it. I think I just came in one day and said, hey, let's do Little Black Egg, and everybody was like, yeah, cool, you know, because everybody knew it, and we loved it, and we just started playing it at almost all our shows. And then when we went in to make this record, the -5 in rock, we were doing mostly originals, but we really liked the way that song was sounding, and we thought, let's do that, put it on the record. There's a couple lines that I botched. I think on the record they say, oh, gall dern, what can I do? And I just didn't know that's what they were saying. I mean, I guess I wasn't used to hearing people say gall dern in a song, so I think I said, oh, darling, what can I do? Or something like that, you know? But I figured out at some point later, I went, that's what he's saying, it's gall dern. And so now when we've been doing it, I've been singing the right lyrics. One of the biggest attractions to me was that the lyrics don't really make any sense. It's such a bizarre sounding record. It's so cool. I mean, no version could be as strange as the original.
There have to have been at least, you know, half a dozen, maybe more covers of the song. You know, there were some bands even in '68 were doing it.
I don't care just what they say. I'm gonna keep it anyway. I won't let them stress and mess.
Charlie or someone said something to me about it. You know, it was kind of a millstone around our necks, but now it's, you know, now it's just something to be very proud of, and you know, they're part of American, you know, rock and roll history.
I've got what they want to see, but I won't let them stretch their necks to see my little black egg, little white specks.
Johnny Chan of A New Dynasty 6's version that's in Cantonese, but even though they have that part at the end about peanut butter, that's in English. Never understood that part.
Well, of course, there's a dirty version of the Little Black Egg, and it's actually so filthy. I can't believe that it ever left somebody's mind, much less was shared among others. But it is a great honor as a songwriter, I think, to have people actually write the filthy version, the Mad Magazine version of your lyric, if you will.
There's certain songs that, and I think that definitely is one of them, where you honest to God can really not top the original.
When The Little Black Egg was written, we all agreed we're never going to reveal it. And you want me to spill everything now?
My memory is Charlie Conlon, we were playing that Saturday night, and Charlie told me to come to his house early that night. So I went over there, and he said, oh, I want to play a song tonight. I want to teach it to you. He said, it's a simple song, and I just want you to play this part all the way through the song. I said, okay. So I learned the song. I had no idea what the song was about, and I asked Charlie at the time what the song was about. He said he had no idea. If he ever had a deep meaning, he never shared it with me.
I wrote this stupid, dumb song in like 15 minutes. I thought about this kid that I hated. He was kind of a mean kid in the neighborhood. He had come over years before with this little nest, this bird's nest. And my mother had always told me, don't ever, if you see a bird's nest, don't ever go near it or touch the eggs because the mother will not come back. And he brought it over to me. And he said, "Hey, you want this?" And I went and I looked in it, and there were these little, I don't know, purple speckled kind of eggs, dark, but they had like little speckles all over them. They weren't just like, you know, chicken eggs. And I looked at them and I went, "No, I don't want them, you know." Okay, and so he left. And so that's what I thought, let's see, maybe I'll write it about those eggs. Couldn't think of anything else.
When the record came out nationally, it was 85 in Billboard or something. You know, it still has its place in history. But the magic was really then. For the band to be something, it was the time. It was a peak, if you will.
Our deal all along was that when we got through with the junior college, the band would break up and we'd go our separate ways. We had problems with Conlon. He was actually fired from the band 2 months or so before we quit. I fired him, and we're still close friends.
Charlie was a little difficult. He was late to practices or didn't come to practices, or because, you know, in a way, Charlie didn't need to practice. He was a little bit better than most of us, I think.
When you're going to work and and people are counting on you to be there at 9 o'clock to play, you'd best be there at 9 o'clock ready to play, not walking in at 9:30 or 2 hours later going, "Oh, I forgot if we would play tonight." Well, that doesn't cut it, especially when you got a bunch of people waiting and paying good money to see you play.
We kept saying, "Charlie, you know, you've got to come to practice, and we've got to work on these songs, and you've got to do this. We're going to look terrible." And we had a lot of pride, amazingly, when you look back on some of the work we did, which wasn't all that fantastic, I'm sure. But we wanted to do it as best we could do it. And Charlie did too, I don't mean that. But he kind of had other priorities. Maybe his head was on a little straighter than the rest of us, I'm not sure.
Charlie was fired because he wouldn't rehearse because he wanted to be with his girlfriend all the time.
Suzanne, she followed us around, you know, to every concert. And I remember one in Orlando where I was standing over to the side. Robbie's here, Pete's here, Sylvan's here, or Sylva's down there, and then Tommy. And I'd be standing over here, and all the crowd and everything else like that. And Suzanne would be like right where that box is. And I'd just be going, doo-doo, 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 you know. And then, "Charlie, you're supposed to sing harmony now." And I, you know, it was like I just lost all interest in anything except her. I was in love. I would have kicked me out too.
The original 5-member band decided that was the end of it. And Rob went away to Europe for the summer and then went off to FSU. And Pete Thomason and I continued to play a little bit, did some more recording of songs that I had written. But it was never the same. There was something very special about the 5 guys. I don't know how to answer it. I don't know how to say it to this day. I can tell you that when we did the reunion 10 years ago, the first thing that hit everybody was when the 5 guys got in the room to rehearse. In 15 seconds, it was all back. And that was pretty amazing.
I saw that, Ruger. I felt it.
I went to high school with Rob Rouse and Sylvan Wells. In '94, we had our 30th class reunion. And we were having a meeting, and we said, wouldn't it be great if the Nightcrawlers could play? Everybody went, well, that'll never happen. But we mentioned it to Sylvan and Rob. And they said, no, they didn't think they could do that. It'd be too hard to get everybody together. And we pretty much thought it wasn't going to happen. Well, then we got a call that it was going to happen, and we were so excited we couldn't believe it.
When I was told I was going to be playing again after 30 years, whatever it was, I was like, you know, you're kidding, right? And they sent me all the tapes, and I had to learn these songs I hadn't played in 30 years. It was kind of really a little scary, if you want the truth. It did come instantly as soon as we started to practice in Sylvan's garage. It was pretty amazing. And Tommy looked at me and he just said, yeah, okay. Because it just fit again.
30 years and nothing changes, except everybody gets grayer and older and it hurts a little bit more.
I don't usually get nervous before I play, but I was very, very nervous that night. just because I wanted it to be good. A lot of people were there.
But I think it's.
Where's Charlie?
The bathroom.
Throwing up?
Charlie
He's been to the bathroom quite a few times.
Charlie, you okay? I didn't do anything to the world.
I feel great.
Why are you?
He's gonna kill
I'm having stomach distress, and you are aiming at me.
Don't have it on anything electric.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Just about. Just about.
They've quit.
Yeah, the drums are all set.
And you put up your drums.
Everything's ready. A lot of
Don't
people
start at
there.
the beginning. We'll be down in a couple of weeks.
Good crowd.
Really?
People are chomping at the bit. I ain't kidding.
Shit.
Where's the bathroom? We're going to go to the bathroom again?
Tell them to come up after.
All right, I'd like to thank you for coming out. The guys are in the door. They're going to play. They're going to rock your socks off, rock your butt into the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, 28 years later, the Nightcrawlers. Just like the North just like Secret Eve, 1964. Yeah. I'm so glad to be back home.
I mean, they were good, still good musicians, and they had so much fun on the stage that it was just electric. It really was. It took us back to the 60s. We went back to high school that night. It was just fabulous, and people still talk about it.
You get up on stage to play, and it's right, it feels right, it's just nothing better.
The great part was getting together with all the guys, and we had a ball.
It was fun. Then all of a sudden it was over with. And I kept thinking, oh, we can do this tomorrow night? No, we can't. You know, we can't.
Now we'll tell them to go ahead and play for the 50th reunion.
It's really the rock and roll dream, isn't it? To, like, you know, a bunch of guys get together, cut a record, and it ascends the charts. Or rather, it has cachet for people all around the world 40 years later.
How cool would it be 40 years from now if somebody compiled a -5 record and tried to find unreleased tracks and put them on it? I mean, it's an awesome, it's an amazing thing.
We can just dream of, well, what if Chuck's girlfriend hadn't done a Yoko? That's horrible to say. Yoko's actually very nice. I have interviewed her. But what if Chuck's girlfriend had not pulled a Yoko and broke up the band? It could have been a really big thing.
We stopped and walked away. What might have been, we'll never know.
I don't know what might have happened had we signed with a different label or something else had occurred, but what happened happened, and I don't regret it for an instant.
I wish we could have gone nationwide. I think we could have held our own with just about anybody at that period of time. I still wouldn't trade the experience for anything in the world.
There were 5 people in a band that had a great time and were all great friends, and they're all still great friends.
We're all best of friends. There's nothing I wouldn't do for any of them. I mean, if they were in jail and it was my last dime and they needed, their bail was a dime, I'd go bail them out. I'd be there for sure, absolutely. They could count on me.
The friendships out of the band were the most important part. I couldn't go back in time and do it any other way. I would do it again. And I don't think you can have that unless it's real.
It was the chemistry of the 5 guys. When you take one of them out, you lost it. It's over. And we found that out. You know, we thought, boy, this is easy. It wasn't easy. We were just really lucky. And I, you know, consider myself really lucky to have had the experience.
It was a powerful experience and a wonderful experience, I think. But you don't get stuck in that, and it doesn't continue to just define who you are, what you become. I don't look back and go, oh, I'm so sad that we didn't have more success. I thought we had wonderful success, had a wonderful time. And how many people in the world have ever had that experience?